Let's go to next section and import and configure Firebase. So we need to make sure if we are importing all these services that we are using. So let's open up our project on VS Code, new tab. So I'll keep this open so that it will host our application. Now let's cd into our project. So I've stored that project in this location, so cd into that, and let's open up it on VS Code. Let's go to index.html. So let's open up these side by side. Alright, so now in configuration step we make sure that we are importing all these and also init. So since we run Firebase use or Firebase init command in this, so it automatically just uses your project's key there. You don't need to do anything here. Also you can verify by going to this location, Firebase init.js. So make sure these all got your project credential, so which will be, since we selected our project there. Okay, so this is how this Firebase tool, CLI tool that we just installed, help us to configure our project. So these all are sitting on Firebase cloud, so this is hosting from there, so we don't these are not locally available. So if you need to make any changes, you need to go to your Firebase console and do it there. Okay, so we double check that our configuration is in place, which is fine. So next step is to sign in the user. So at this point our Firebase SDK is ready to use. Okay, so let's you authenticate user with Google sign-in that we enabled. So we'll write code inside main.js. So let's go to script and main.js. So as you can see, there is already some boilerplate for setup for us, and in sign-in function we need to first sign in Firebase with credential from Google user. So first let's create a provider. Okay, so first we initialize the Google Auth provider, and then we call sign in with pop-up, and then we pass in the provider. And let's keep the sign out function in place as well. There we go. So next we need to track the auth state of user, like if user is signed in or sign out. So according to that we'll perform the operation. So inside init Firebase auth we need to call that. So Firebase auth on auth state change auth state observer. So according to this auth state observer, we'll toggle the sign in or sign out button. Okay, so now we can see this button, sign in with Google. Let's sign in. So sign in with my Google account. Alright, so I'm signed in. Okay, so next we need to display the user information here, so which user is signed in. So to make that work, so signed in users data is always available as Firebase auth and then current user object. Earlier we have set up this function to trigger when user signs in, so that it updates the UI accordingly. It will call the get profile pic URL and username. Okay, first we need to get the profile pic. So if profile pic is already set up in account, it will pull that, otherwise placeholder image will be pulled, and username. So return Firebase get username. So basically this observer will call these two methods when user is signed in or sign out. So let's copy that into here. So it will return true or false depending upon whether user is signed in or not. So let's go to our application and refresh the page. There we go. So we can see the user information there, and if we sign out, yeah, so everything changes. So let's start by reading the message. Okay, to read messages we need to have some messages on our database. So we got this initial messages.json file and importing that will just import these messages there. So let's try importing that using our Firebase CLI. So make sure you are inside web start folder and open up terminal, and then let's run. So it will go one step out of the directory and then access the initial message.json. Yes, we are sure. Okay, data persisted successfully. Let's verify that by visiting console. Okay, so we can see messages here at this location specified by this. So if you visit this link, you'll see this data here. So with few sample messages in place, let's synchronize these messages. We'll need to add listeners that triggers when changes are made to the data, and then create the UI element that show new messages. So basically in load messages file inside main.js, we need to listen for these changes. Let's copy that and see it there. So we created a function that will call the display messages. If you go to message, so display message will accept these parameters and then create an element and just display them on some location. So later on in this series we'll use Vue.js, which will make these tasks very easy. So for now, just at the learning phase, we'll follow this tutorial. So after that, in database we are just fetching last 12 messages and listening for child added and child changed event, and calling the callback. So this callback will call this display messages. So that's the workflow. So since we are using these messages, our all data is contained inside this messages node and child of the messages. So message is parent and all these messages are child, like so. And yeah, now we should see our messages in our chat. Alright, so after doing all these steps, if you do not see the messages in your friendly chat, currently I can see. So the thing that is not defined on this documentation or tutorial that I find is in rules section, these two rules, read and write, are false by default. You need to make them both true to make them readable and writable. So we'll learn about more security rules later on, but for now let's just make it pass by read equals to true and write equals to true. Alright, so after doing that, you can see your messages here. Okay, let's deal with sending message part. So to send message, we need this function to save message. First let's copy and paste it to our, so inside save message section we'll paste that code. And alright, so it will reference the database node and then push with this data structure. So if there is error, it will just tell us error, as simple as that. So by the way, if you are wondering where we are calling all this, so for example, we are calling this load message at the end of this file. So when document loads, we are calling this load message. Before that, initialize Firebase auth method. Alright, so in same method we are just pushing this data to our database. Now let's go to our application and try sending message. Refresh the page and hi man, there we go. We can see message hi again. Let's see after refresh if it persists or not. So you can verify these here as well. Let's try changing any message. So how are you, I will change this how are you to hey web tab, hit enter, there we go. This changes on real time. So now let's handle the saving image part, sending image. So we already enabled this cloud storage. So in UI there is already button for that, but currently I think that doesn't do anything. Yeah, so let's try by putting this function into our main.js and save message image. So I'll replace that with, so same thing, if we want to change to our database we need to reference that node and just hit push method. Alright, so after that we are listening for promise, then we are just accessing the file path and storing this to storage. Yeah, so let's try sending messages. Yeah, so we got loader and image.